You want me to? Okay. Today we. Okay. How about if I do it again?
Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd. Welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design. Today, we've decided to invite a friend to the bar.
But not just any friend. This one comes bearing gifts.
True. And he's from across the pond, so that's going to make us sound smart.
So maybe this episode is part of something new. Two designers and a poster enthusiast meet at the pub.
Love it. Let's jump in.
Okay, so Paul, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how we all came to be gathering around the bar today?
Right, yeah, I bought some posters for you guys to take a look at.
Woo!
Obviously, I'll make mine a pint of bitter if that's okay with you guys.
That's...
Oh, don't worry. Todd's bitter every podcast we record, so this is...
Yes, we love when you bring gifts. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, so I bought some posters for you guys to take a look at.
All right.
I started being interested in posters about 9 years ago, so relatively recently. And it started off with some of the classics, old travel posters, things from the 30s and the 40s. And the last few years, I've been thinking more about, well, what's pop culture? What's relevant in terms of pop culture and posters? So what I did was I pulled together a little list and I sent it to you guys. And I said, here's some kind of relatively contemporary posters. What do you think? So I think we got some Saul Bass in there, a bit of David Hockney, some Iko Tanaka, and, a few other kind of interesting current stuff. And I think we've picked a few and we're going to talk a little bit about it.
So, Paul, I need to ask this question because you are not a designer by training. So you mentioned that about 9 years ago, you stumbled on posters. You just threw out a bunch of amazing names, right? These amazing designers. And are you self-taught? Do you know any designers? Like, how did you find posters? Like, what was it about posters that got you interested?
Interesting question, because I don't know any designers. In fact, I wouldn't hang out with designers normally.
Yeah, me either, dude.
Yeah, trust us. Yeah, Todd and we barely hang around with each other.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know two now, so.
Yeah, I'm getting pulled into the cult.
That's right, right.
So I just liked some of the styles, some of the art, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Then I just started sort of researching the artists, and I started off with a very traditional sort of base railway posters and things of that nature, and self-taught. So I started a blog in 2015. So I was blogging about these great artists. No one was reading it. So I then kind of moved on a little bit further, and I started, a fairly big Twitter account, and I started posting, and through all that, I've begun to understand like who are the big movers. But the interesting thing is, because I'm not self-taught, it's really the people that resonate with people today, and some of the other guys have just kind of fallen away a little bit.
And so, Paul, you know a lot about the retail side of these famous posters too. You have some poster shops, right?
Right, yeah. I got a couple of poster shops in my local town. One's just a big stack of posters, and the other one's a little bit more curated, and they're framed and they're in a gallery kind of situation.
Cool.
And so, I do buy and sell, and I've got quite a good nous for digging out a poster or two.
So what's the name of your store? What's the website people can go to check it out?
Right. So the website's a bit clunky because it's the old blog site. So the website is 365posterblog.com. But if you look for Grafix, Grafix, on Instagram, Twitter, etc., you'll find me.
Oh, cool.
Wonderful.
Right, so Paul's on the socials, which is great. And you post frequently too, don't you, Paul?
You post a lot, man.
So
you're gonna wear Twitter out, or X, or whatever it's called. We'll call it. It's sort of like you're turning Twitter into Tumblr. I don't know. There's like a lot of stuff going on there, which is great.
I do. I keep finding new ones, but at some point I'm going to run out. But I don't think that time's coming anytime soon.
That's exciting. So before we kind of get into what you brought, Paul, are there themes that you see when you're at the store, when you're having conversations about posters? Are there particular themes that people kind of respond to more than others.
Or what are people coming into the store and asking you for, right?
Yeah,
Like, do you
yeah,
have
yeah,
X?
yeah. That's a
Do you
good
have a
idea.
poster with X on it? Whatever
Right.
that is.
I mean, it does vary. I mean, a lot of times it's something they saw on a TV show in the background or something like that.
Like the unknown comic on the Gong Show or Benny Hill or
Right,
something.
something like that. Like, well, it's usually something they've seen on, Love Island or something like that. But
Oh, that's Todd's favorite show.
Oh,
well,
stop.
so Todd will know
Stop.
all about that then,
Yeah.
of course. So yeah, it's some kind of crazy show poster sometimes. Science fiction's always good,
Yeah,
and
okay.
as I told you guys before, animals, people cannot get enough of animals, and one animal in particular. I mean, can you guess what that one is?
The thing that, along with porn, powers the internet, right? Cat videos.
That's it. You got it. So yeah, I mean, cats. I just cannot get enough cat posters.
Oh,
It's a problem. It's literally a problem.
You like for yourself, or you mean just the throughput of like selling them?
I mean,
okay.
the demand is more than the supply. Let's just put it that way.
Got it. I just didn't know if you like had a whole room that was wallpapered baseboard to ceiling with nothing but cat posters.
that would make a lot of people
if it
happy.
was, I'd be taking them off that wall and selling them.
Or just sell your house and let someone move in there.
Or
Make that
just
your Airbnb. Yeah.
Chisel the wall off.
Yeah, Banksy style. There you go.
Exactly.
Paul, you're not Banksy, are you?
Yeah, Paul.
Well, he's quite well known to be British, and he's about my age. So don't want to drop any spoilers.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks.
I think it's like that rule, though, Elliot, with police. They have to answer truthfully if you ask them. So we don't know if Paul's being truthful or not.
Oh, he's being cagey. Or is there a British term for cagey?
Being dodgy.
Yeah, dodgy. Okay,
Yeah.
I like that.
Shifty.
There you go. See?
But yeah, I mean, he's not done bad for himself, old Banksy, though, has he?
True.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's worked. Whatever he did, it worked.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't shred the cat posters. Don't put them in any sort of special frame that shreds them.
So animals, you mentioned cats especially. You mentioned movies one time that were those were always popular, and you also mentioned that music was a popular theme that draws a lot of interest.
Yeah, I mean, one of my two shops is kind of in a record store or adjacent to a record store.
Oh, that's great.
So that's kind of where it came up. It was like, okay, let's sort of get some posters. What's everyone going to want? And of course, they want posters relating to their favorite bands and the records that they're buying, and that's why a lot of the posters relate to album covers, which is a subject you've already covered in your pod before.
Sure.
And so album covers, favorite bands, striking visual designs all come to mind when you think of music posters.
Yeah. Interesting. So one of the posters you brought to share with us today is the Live Aid poster from 1985, right? The original Live Aid. And what can you tell us about that? Are there any
I'm
kind
not
of
going to tell you too much about it because I think Elliot's going to get some information. But what's interesting, fun fact, there's obviously two Live Aid posters.
Yep.
So there's the global jukebox one, which was the original concept, and then there's the Peter Blake one, which is the one that I brought to your guys' attention. And basically, it's a little bit cooler, and that's reflected in desirability and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and when I looked at this, when you brought the posters in, and I was attracted to the Live Aid poster, I think I was attracted to it because of all the things that are right with it, but also because of all the things that are amazingly wrong with it.
Because it is of the time, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it... So we'll have on our episode page, we will have the posters that we're going to be talking about today. And the Live Aid poster, as you mentioned, Paul, it was designed by, and you probably know more about this artist than we do, British artist Sir Peter Blake, right? And he was what? He was sort of a collage artist. He's also made surreal art. Didn't he make a variety of different things?
Yeah, I mean, he's primarily known for his collages. Obviously, that's another thing that I picked up from a recent episode. But I mean, collages is his thing. He sort of transposes what was current at that time with some more historical information into a collage. Got some crazy backgrounds in there. And as you say, in terms of the Live Aid poster, it's so wrong, it's right. I mean, it's got weird stuck-on bits in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But it's never going to be repeated. I guess that's one thing. It's unique.
Yeah. So, do we need to take a step back? I was just thinking about this. We're jumping into Live Aid, and there are a lot of people who may not exactly know what Live Aid was. Or if they do, I would say probably in terms of recent pop culture, if people have seen the movie, the biopic of Freddie Mercury, of course, it ends with Queen's show at Live Aid.
Mm-hmm.
And what people may not know is that was part of a much larger two continent fundraising concert, or actually two concerts that are connected or joined up.
Mm-hmm.
And even there was one artist, Phil Collins. This is so 80s, right? So he performs in London. The two venues were Wembley Stadium and then JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. He performs at Wembley, jumps on the Concorde, flies to the US, and then performs in Philadelphia. So we actually had like one crossover artist. And so it was started by a guy, a British musician named Bob Geldorf, right? Boomtown Rats.
Yep.
And he started this
Midyear, his partner Midyear.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so, see, I was young when this happened.
You
so
were
you're
a baby.
You're going to know more than I know.
Yeah, I was there.
How old was I? I guess I was 12. But I remember this. Like, so this was live on television. That's why it was called Live Aid. Like, it was broadcast around the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fundraiser to end famine in Ethiopia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously gone down into legend. And again, it might be a little bit like the poster. It might never be done again.
Right.
But at the time, it was groundbreaking, and it was quite thrilling as well.
Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of British bands, American bands from all over. And some of the British bands were performing in the U.S. and some of the American bands were performing in Britain and everything like this. And it was, I mean, I'm trying to remember, like, how many hours was it? Like, do you guys remember?
I mean, it was... And this just popped in my head when you said that. I want to say it was 13 hours total. I may be making that up, but it was like a
6
full
hours
day.
each side.
Yeah, it was a full day show of each one, and then there was a little bit of overlap. So it was a big day.
Yeah, and all these bands were coming on, and they were doing. You know, it was funny. They would do like 3 songs, 4 songs, and they would disappear. And then the next band would come on and do 2 or 3 or 4 songs, and they would disappear. And then sometimes a band would come on later, and then there'd be people sitting in from an earlier band that had performed. And it was really kind of this, I don't know, sort of like festival in the truest sense. It was sort of like a block party or something like that, you know, but it was with all these bands that at the time were huge in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Because, again, this was really within the wheelhouse of MTV. So this was when MTV in the mid-'80s was really starting to take off. So a lot of these British artists were getting known, certainly in the United States, because those were the videos everyone was seeing on MTV.
Yeah. You know what? I just looked up. It's actually 16 hours grand total from start to finish. So a little bit longer than I thought.
Okay. So talking about this poster real quick and talking about the artwork and the reason I chose it, I mean, it's very, very colorful. It's got icons, like we were saying. It's got, you know, it says the Global Jukebox. It's got a jukebox on it. It's got the pictures of the 2 stadiums. It has satellites on it because that's how the transmission was being broadcast to everyone's homes. It's got the Concorde for the reason I mentioned earlier. It's got the Liberty Bell because it was in Philadelphia. It's got a map of the world. It's got starving children. It has 2 different Live Aid flyers for the 2 different venues. And what I think is so messy about it, like, so it's really funny. So it just has Live Aid in black and white at the top. And then underneath it says Wembley Stadium, London on the left. And then it says JFK Stadium, Philadelphia on the right. But then the picture below each label is the other stadium, the other venue. And then they threw that country's flag over it. So, like, if you didn't know what was going on, you know, in other words, if you didn't know how to read English or whatever, you weren't really paying attention. You really had no clue what, like, it wasn't very, I don't know what the right word would be. It was descriptive, certainly, but it wasn't accurate.
There was a continuity issue, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's a poster that is really a glorified flyer. You know, it's almost in some ways like a punk rock, like a punk show flyer, you know, like as a poster, it's very
Yeah,
loosey-goosey.
I imagine Peter Blake didn't have a whole lot of time to put to it, or didn't take a lot of time, because it has that pastiche quality that you expect to see in something that was sort of organized on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, it's got Helvetica for the sort of outside the art, and then it has sort of a crunched up Gil Sans in red along the bottom, all caps. That's the global jukebox. So there are definitely some rules being broken. How about that?
But this one is popular, Paul. This is really popular.
It's got some value to it. Yeah. I mean, Peter Blake, don't forget, he did the Sgt. Pepper cover.
Oh, so right.
That was his thing.
Right.
So that's where he got his fame from, and he sort of traded off that for the rest of his career, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I think the artwork itself came from the record. So this all was spawned when there was a Christmas record, all the stars put together, and that's very similar to the cover of that, similar to this poster. So they've basically taken the cover of the record and they've messed around with it.
Wasn't the record Don't They Know It's Christmas? Was that the name of the record?
Do They Know It's Christmas?
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's quite a desirable poster. Yeah, it's worth about $600.
Wow,
today.
okay.
Okay, Todd, quick. Distract Paul so I can roll it up and take it.
Okay. Shh.
That's what I was worried about.
I know. Yeah, you should.
Don't spill any drinks on these.
You should. You should.
Quite valuable.
$600. Wow. Okay, that's pretty.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. I mean, I can see why it was an event. It was a moment in time. It's not going to be repeated. No. It was Peter Blake who, as you said, had done the Sgt. Pepper cover. I've heard of that record. I think it's probably.
Was that a Beach Boys record, Todd?
It's a Wings.
Oh
record.
Yes, that's right.
I think it's a competition between that one and Pet Sounds for the best.
right. Yeah, it is.
From the 60s.
It is.
It's a close call.
It
is.
Well, Pet Sounds has Cooper Black, which is Todd's favorite typeface.
It is. I can't. Yeah, if you want to get design nerdy, then we'll talk about that. But you brought another poster too that I found particularly interesting, and it's almost of the same period too, right? A poster advertising the album Rio by Duran Duran. And you said that one had some popularity to it as well, right, Paul?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to posters, you're looking for, like, I call it a double threat, you know?
Yeah.
You need a good design and a good product. Of course, at that time, Duran Duran, they were probably the biggest band in the world at that time. They were the epitome of cool. And obviously what they've done with this poster is, and cover, obviously, is they've taken something like quintessentially 80s by a great artist of that time. I mean, you could say it's not aged well, but at that time, that was, the pinnacle of art. And then they've wrapped it up in a nicely designed package, which is, quite interesting and desirable. And when you see it, you know instantly what you're looking at.
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the criteria, I would say.
Yeah,
you could see that from the other side of the room. You know what it is.
So, Paul, you mentioned being right next door to a record store. I would say probably more people know of Duran Duran, perhaps, than know of Live Aid, right? So, when people are asking about the Duran Duran poster, I mean, if the Live Aid poster is worth $600, what is an original Rio poster worth?
Well, not as much. I mean, it's because, would you put it on your wall? That's the big question. I mean, people would put the Blake up because, it's kind of a cool conversation piece. It's a recognised artist. Patrick Nagel, like I said, he's not aged well in terms of the art. So it may not get on everyone's wall, and that's why it's only worth maybe $150.
Okay.
But it's because it's not everyone's, as we say in England, cup of tea.
Right. Well, it is definitely of the time. And so Rio was Duran Duran's second album. And if you cast your mind back to that time, which, was it 1983? Was that?
Yeah, two or three.
Came out?
Yeah.
So they were sort of this synth pop, funk, disco, new wave, British pop band. And the title, Rio, actually comes from the bassist, John Taylor, who kind of conceived that as this ultimate in exotic stuff. So it sort of matched the exotic tone of the album. And if you remember, they were really sort of trailblazers for their videos at the time,
Yes.
because they were beautiful young men performing music all over the world for beautiful young ladies showing up in their video. But as you said, Patrick Nagel was the artist that did the painting. It was commissioned by Duran Duran's manager at the time, a guy named Paul Burrow, and he had seen Patrick Nagel's work in a publication that Patrick did a lot for, a gentleman's publication. I think, what was it called? Play something, Elliot? Play something?
The one with the rabbit on the front?
Playboy. Yes, so it was an animal magazine.
Yes.
So he had done quite a lot of work in that. And the designer was a guy named Malcolm Garrett. And that name may sound familiar because Malcolm Garrett was, I think he was from Manchester, was it? Paul, do you know that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, a little bit about this. There was three guys, poster designers, that all came out of the same school.
Yeah.
And they were kind of inspired by punk flyers, like you said. Jamie Reed was one of the guys that just immediately preceded them.
Mm-hmm.
They just went and they ripped up the album cover world for a couple of years.
Yeah. And Peter Saville was the other one, right? The third one.
Right.
So clearly something was happening pretty good there. But let me describe what we're looking at here and why it is so quintessential 1980s. It is a portrait of a young woman. She's really stylish. Patrick Nagel's style is pretty minimal, pretty graphic, and pretty much about beautiful women all the time. This woman is she's smiling. There's not a lot of detail, but you can still make out what the image is. I happen to really love his work for that quality. But as you said, it could be considered a little out of its time now. It's very sensual. It's very contemporary at the time, and she's also this woman who we'll just call her Rio. She's wearing these crazy long earrings, that sort of form this V shape pointing down towards her cleavage. I don't know anyone in the 80s that actually wore earrings like that, but maybe they did. But what I thought was kind of interesting, I didn't know, Paul, if you knew this, Malcolm was actually inspired by tobacco covers, cigarette packages, to create this cover and this poster. That's what inspired him, because he thought the name Rio sounded Cuban and South American. So he designed what he thought would be sort of the quintessential cigar packaging, of course, running through the filter of the 1980s at the time too. So that was pretty cool. And even the typography that says Rio, he pulled that from also the cigar packaging from the 1950s, which I think that was his sweet spot for that. So, I think it's interesting. I think Patrick Nagel was the artist of the early 80s. Unfortunately, he lived a pretty fast lifestyle, and he passed away in 1984 at the age of 38.
Wow.
So
I
pretty
didn't
young.
know that.
Oh yeah. He he was kind of a playboy, to use the expression. I think not. I don't know. He was married and had a child, so I'm not saying that in terms of messing around or anything. But I think he had a pretty fast lifestyle.
He was enjoying life. Yeah,
he was painting beautiful, scantily clad women.
So, speaking of beautiful, scantily clad women, apparently, for over 40 years, there was some controversy about who the model was, who the inspiration was for this poster. And they recently figured it out.
Yes.
And so it's a woman named Marcy Hunt. Yeah. And she had never been aware that she was the inspiration for it. So it took over 40 years for them to find her and figure it out. And I don't know if she was compensated for it in any way, Well,
it comes from a Vogue France cover of 1981.
Okay.
So she was compensated to be on that, but not... this reminds me of our episode about civic posters with the Shepherd Ferry controversy as well. But yeah, I mean, if it's just revealed in 2024, and that's, however many years, 40 some years.
Yeah, 42 years.
Probably didn't make any coin off of that one.
But it's funny. One would think, like, going back to one of the reasons that this poster is so well regarded and so in demand, like, it's so ubiquitous, and Duran Duran was so, like, you would think at some point in time she would have looked at that and said, hey, that's me. It's like, if you look at the original reference photo, and we'll post this on our episode page, it's close enough that I think, Todd, to your point, like the photographer who realized Shepherd Ferry was using his image of Barack Obama, they'd be like, hey, where was the photographer in this conversation? The Vogue photographer.
Right.
So it seems like there, or her manager, like her rep or something. It seems like there were a lot of people who dropped the ball on this.
Yeah. No doubt. So Patrick Nagel's work of the time was drawing a premium price tag. His paintings were huge. He was an illustrator as well as a fine artist. So once this painting was done, the original hung in Duran Duran's manager's office, Paul Burroughs' office. And during one of the video shoots, they wanted to use it for the video. So the band borrowed it. I'm doing air quotes there. From his office, and never returned it. Since then, they've been moving it around to each band member's home or apartment to hang it on their wall.
Staying one step ahead.
Yeah, they're like, he'll forget.
That's awesome. I love that.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, one just slight thing about it as well is it's one of the first albums that was a wraparound.
Yeah.
So the art on the front carried its way through to the art on the back. That was relatively new concept at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is cool. We love talking about posters, Paul. We love hearing your point of view of it because Elliot and I know a whole lot of things, but we certainly don't know the value of money or anything like that. So or one of us does not know the value of money.
Well, I'm loosely acquainted with money in that I see it go by.
Right.
I can spot it from a distance.
I hope we're going to have future conversations about other themes too, because I think there's a lot we could learn from what you're telling us, Paul, and we would love to learn more about what's hot in the marketplace. But for today, we are any other music-related stuff, Elliot, you want to talk about with Paul?
Gosh, if we're talking about music and posters, we could be here. We could do 8 hours. We could do a Live Aid length podcast episode, I think.
Yes, we could.
But, Paul, we want to invite you back to the bar. And as Todd mentioned at the top of this episode, there are a lot of different categories we could talk about. And one of the things we were thinking about maybe was, what if you brought back some movie posters for us? We love movie posters.
Right. I mean, it's obviously another rich scene to delve into. 70s and 80s is, the sweet spot.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we could bring a Gone with the Wind, or we could bring an Avengers one. But I think 70s and 80s is where it's going to be at. But certainly, I will bring them along as long as you don't spill your cocktails on them.
No, we make no promises.
Well, we'll do our best. Sometimes the cocktails have a mind of their own.
That's right. And sometimes Todd uses the design work I bring as a coaster for all the drinks he's buying.
That's true. My friend, I will remind you, it was because of you that we got thrown out of the last place together involving a ketchup bottle.
That's a true story.
How do we would say it would be tomato sauce in the UK, right, Paul? Tomato sauce.
Well, you say tomato.
We say, or American sauce. I've had friends call that
American
when I was
sauce.
over visiting. Yeah.
Okay.
Red sauce. Sometimes we call it red sauce.
Yeah.
Well, then what do you call spaghetti sauce?
Well, we call that bolognese
Call
sauce.
it spaghetti sauce.
Okay. I don't know.
Anyway, you can go into a place like a Greasy Spoon, and you'll definitely get asked red or brown.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful, you're going to be looking a bit confused about that.
No,
one.
look, Todd and I are world travelers. We've had red sauce, we've had brown sauce, we've
Brown
had red brown
sauce,
sauce, we've had
sauce,
all the color
green brown
delineations
sauce.
of
Yeah.
sauce. You name a sauce, chances are we've had it thrown on us, we've dripped it on one another, or
We're sauce people.
we are sauce experts. Well, I'm on the sauce right now.
This has been great talking about music today, and look forward to other themes later.
Yeah. So, Todd, as we finish with the music, do you know
Mhm.
what would be music to my ears as we wrap up?
What's that, Elliot?
Um, well, I'm thinking you can pick up the next round for me and Paul.
Oh,
And
here we
look,
go.
well, I'm saving you some money because remember,
Oh
there's no
no.
tipping in the UK.
Okay. Well, I can get behind that. All right. I think it's the least I can do for Paul spending his time with us here in the pub today, and bringing us some beautiful posters and hitting us with that wonderful poster knowledge. All right, folks. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Paul. We really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you, Paul, and drink up. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.